Hello, welcome to the second part of the budget line. We are just studying this under the concept of utility. Now we assume that, there are two possible goods that a household could buy. We can assume them to the good X and good Y. The price of good one, or say, for example, the price of good X, say, for example, is PX, and the price of good Y is the price of PY. If consumption of good X is X and the consumption of good 2 is Y, then the total consumption expenditures, say, for example, will be PX into X and PY into Y. Now, what does this Px into x and Py into y show? This particular equation basically, or this expression actually shows you that the amount of expenditures that you make on the two goods, like say, for example, the total amount that you spend on x will be this, and the total amount of amount you spend on y is this. This is the total amount that basically you can find out by multiplying the quantity of x with the price of x. This is the amount that you are spending on x. And this the total amount of spend, that you make on spend on the y can be found out by multiplying the py with y. So this particular equation expression actually tells you the total amount of expenditures that you make on good x and good y. Now, suppose that a household has got fixed quantity of income, M. Now, basically, according to the constraints, a person cannot spend more than his income. However, he can spend less than his income, but according to our assumption, he will not be spending less than his income or more than his income. So now if you look at these equations, if for example here, now what does this equation show? This equation show that the amount of expenditures that you make on good X and the amount of expenditures that you make on good Y can actually be less than or equal to the amount of income that you earn. Now, according to basic assumption, like say, for example, if we assume that a person actually spends exactly what actually he earns, so we can actually write this, like say, for example, this is the amount of X, this is the amount of expenditures on X, and this is the amount of expenditure on Y. And the sum of these two expenditures should be equal to 1, M, say, for example. So this M will be representing the total amount of income that you have. And out of that total income, you are spending some amount on X and some amount on Y. So this is what basically, is the basic understanding of this expenditures. Graphically, you can represent this as a budget line. Now, this budget line basically has got two sides. The one side is x-axis, the other side is the y-axis. Like, say, for example, if we continue with our previous example of Jose, like, say, for example, who is consuming movies and t-shirts. If we measure the t-shirts, the quantity of t-shirts on x-axis and the quantity of movies on y-axis, we can see here that the budget constraint basically is defined as the combinations that a person like Jose can afford. Like, say, for example, here is to say, for example, look at this, the maximum amount of the t-shirts he can buy is 4, and the maximum amount of movies he can buy is, say, for example, 8. And all the combinations between these extremes basically actually show that what actually are the affordable combinations. Now, if we just look at the, say, for example, if we look at the slope of this budget line, the slope of the budget line can be derived from the simple basic equation of the budget line. Say, for example, your px into x is e plus py into y is equal to m. Now, suppose if you solve this equation as a linear equation, and this linear equation basically is like, say, for example, if you solve this equation in the form of y is equal to mx plus c, so you can basically find out from this particular equation the coefficient of x as the slope of this budget line. Now you have got this equation, which is actually px into x plus py into y is equal to m. Now, if you just say, for example, subtract both sides by px into x, so you will have got this kind of a thing, px into x. Now, if you have got this particular, you're solving this for y, so you just divide the whole equation by py. So you get y is equal to m over py minus px over py into x. Now, this equation basically can be compared with this equation, which is what actually is the y is equal to mx plus c. The coefficient of x basically is the slope. So the slope of this budget line is basically the minus px, which is in here, say, for example, or the py. The px here is the price of t-shirts, and the py, say, for example, is the price of movies. So the ratio between the price of x and price of y will be representing the amount of, the budget, the slope, the budget line. Okay, so this budget line basically also tells you that what amount of goods are affordable and what amounts of goods are not affordable. Like say for example, again, say for example, this particular region, this region, and this region, like say for example, if you are consuming in this region, like you can afford this region, but you are not optimizing your consumption, because with available income you can actually spend more, you can buy more goods. Here, like the amount of goods that you want to consume are not affordable. Like say for example, you don't have got enough income to reach this level of consumption. So you only are able to, like you will, your maximum product consumption will be on the budget line. Say for example, the points represents the amount of expenditures that you make on the combinations of good X and good Y. So further, like say for example, if you look at the important features of it, so the important features basically explains that, like what are the budget, like what are the intercepts of like an X and intercept of Y, and similarly what is the slope of this budget line. As we know that the slope of the budget line is minus P1 over P2. This budget line slope basically tells you the ratio between the price of X and price of Y. So further, like say for example, we can play with this budget line. There are many instances in which this budget line shifts and budget line rotates on either x-axis or y-axis. Like say, for example, the budget line shifts when the income changes, like, when the income increases, this budget line shifts outwards. And when the income of the individual decreases, the budget line shifts inwards. Why the budget line shifts outwards and inwards? Like say, for example, if your income increases, your affordability increases. Again, if you look at this budget line here, like say, for example, you have got this budget line here. Now, this is the budget line that you basically can afford. If your income gets double, like say, for example, now you can basically afford more of good X and more of good Y. Similarly, if a person's income actually falls, the consumption actually, like, he can make of the both goods falls. So his budget line shifts inwards, say, for example, when the income of an individual falls. So, like the intercept basically changes on x-axis and y-axis, but the slope does not change because, of course, the income is changing. The respective prices or the relative prices of the two goods are the same. So this is what basically happens. Like, say, for example, if you assume that, like, the income of the Joseph falls, say, for example, from $56 to $42, initially he could afford, like, say, for example, 4 t-shirts out of this income of the $56. And say, for example, he could afford the 8 movies, like, with the income of $6. But suppose his income falls to $42. Now he cannot actually afford maximum 4 of t-shirts and maximum 8 of the movies. He will definitely be able to consume or afford less than what he could afford earlier on, because now his income has fallen. So this particular case actually shows that how the budget line shifts inwards. Similarly, the budget line can shift outward as well when the income of the individual increases. Now, if you look at that, what happens when the relative price changes? As you know, that the slope of the budget line is the relative price. Like, say, for example, here the slope is basically, like the slope is, like that slope is the minus px over py. So when the ratio of the price between the x and y changes, like that basically determines, or that actually changes the slope of the budget line. So it is relative price that determines the slope of the budget line, and income relative to the price determines the position of it. So suppose that from the original budget $56, movies double in the price from $17 to $14. So what will happen? Like, say, for example, you can see that, like, if the budget line, say, for example, how many you could buy, 8 movies with the income of the $56. But now you can buy only the maximum of 4 movies with the income of the $56, because the income actually, the price actually of that has doubled. Now, what actually has this done? This particular kind of a development has shifted the budget line or rotated the budget line on the y-axis. Now, this rotation of the budget line is basically, like happening because of the fall or the increase in the price of the movies. We can use these kind of examples to understand like the different kind of behaviors which actually the people show when their price of the goods changes or the income of the individuals changes. In the next lecture, we shall be continuing about the utility. Thank you very much.